Have you ever noticed how certain people just linger in your thoughts? No matter how busy your day is, no matter how far away they are, they keep showing up in your mind, in your dreams, in the quiet spaces when no one's watching. It's as if they're stitched into the fabric of your spirit, echoing in the stillness of your soul. And maybe for a while, you tried to ignore it. You told yourself, it's just me overthinking. It's just a memory resurfacing. But it doesn't fade. In fact, it grows. It becomes louder, not like a shout, but like a presence. And you begin to wonder why. Why can't I stop thinking about this person? You see, we are not merely flesh and bone. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And in the spiritual realm, God doesn't always communicate with words. He doesn't always send lightning bolts or write messages across the sky. No, He often whispers. He nudges. He tugs on your heart through moments that seem small, through thoughts that return again and again. When someone keeps appearing in your consciousness, God could very well be drawing your attention to something deeper, something sacred, something intentional. What if it isn't just your mind wandering? What if it's God saying, pay attention here. I've placed this person in your heart for a reason. Because God is not random. He is deliberate. And when He places someone on your heart, it's not for you to obsess or worry. It's for you to seek, to discern, to pause and ask, Lord, what are you trying to show me? It could be a person in pain who needs your prayer. It could be someone from your past that God wants to bring back into your future. It could be a partner meant to walk with you in your purpose, a soul tied to yours not by romance or emotion alone, but by divine assignment. Sometimes the presence of that person in your thoughts is God inviting you to intercede. Sometimes it's Him urging you to forgive, to reach out, to reconcile. And other times, He's simply showing you a piece of the story that is yet to unfold. But what you must not do is dismiss it as nothing. Because in God's economy, nothing is wasted, not even a thought. You might say, but I haven't spoken to them in years. Or, we barely know each other. Or, I'm not sure why I feel so drawn to them. That's the mystery of divine connection. God often moves in ways that bypass the logic of the mind to speak directly to the spirit. And your spirit, more than your intellect, recognizes who and what is meant for you. That's why it stirs when you think of this person. That's why there's weight in their presence, even if only in memory. Now, this doesn't mean you should go chasing every person who floats through your thoughts. No, the purpose of this divine prompting is not pursuit, but presence. It's about becoming aware. It's about recognizing that your thoughts are not always just your own. They may be the voice of God inviting you to listen, not act impulsively, not rush, but to lean in, to be still, to ask, what are you trying to tell me through this person? You don't need a vision. You don't need a prophecy. Sometimes, all you need is awareness. The understanding that when someone stays on your heart, God might be using them as a vessel to open something within you. Something holy, something healing, something new. So, the next time someone keeps crossing your mind, don't run from it, don't drown it out. Sit with it. Pray over it. Acknowledge it. Because when God places someone on your heart, He is opening a door. And it is only the quiet soul that hears the knock. And when you do hear it, don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Just open the door. There's something quite fascinating about how we often try to make sense of everything with our minds. We want explanations. We want reasons. We want to tie our feelings into neat little packages and label them so we can feel in control. But what happens when your spirit starts moving before your mind catches up? What happens when you're drawn to someone not because of what they say or do or how they look, but because something deep within you simply knows? This is where things get quiet, mysterious, sacred. You can't explain it to your friends. You try, but the words fall flat. I don't know why I keep thinking about them. You say, and there's nothing logical about it. And yet the connection remains. A gentle pull, a presence that lingers in your thoughts like a whisper carried on the wind. And here's the thing most people overlook. Your spirit is far more intuitive than your intellect. It recognizes what your conscious mind hasn't yet understood. It knows what belongs before you do. It's like walking into a room and immediately sensing the atmosphere. No one has spoken. Nothing dramatic has happened. But you just know. Whether peace or tension is in the air, that's not your logic at work. That's your spirit reading the invisible. And the same thing happens with people. There are moments when you meet someone or even just think of someone and something inside you quietly stirs. Not anxiety, not obsession, just a calm awareness, a still magnetism, a resonance. And if you're not careful, you'll try to analyze it away. You'll talk yourself out of the divine because it doesn't fit neatly into human categories. But God doesn't always speak in sentences. Sometimes He speaks in silence, in knowing, in the rhythm of your heartbeat when that person comes to mind. And you must not dismiss that. You must not assume it's foolish or random or just your imagination. Because your spirit, if you allow it, it will often lead you to truth before you ever arrive there with understanding. This is why some thoughts return not with noise, but with peace. They don't scream for attention. They don't stir confusion. They sit quietly inside you, waiting for you to look inward rather than outward. And the person you're constantly thinking about, they may be part of that sacred conversation, not because of desire, not because of fantasy, but because there's something your spirit recognizes, something you're being drawn toward, not to possess, but to perceive, not to chase, but to contemplate. You see, there's a reason the heart often knows long before the head agrees. The soul has memory. It carries echoes of people who are meant to teach you, grow you, or walk with you in ways the mind hasn't caught up to yet. And when that kind of knowing begins to rise, you don't need to panic or push it away. You don't need to turn it into a decision. You simply need to stay open, stay present, let the awareness grow without forcing it into action. Because timing matters. Revelation comes in layers. And some truths are too fragile to handle roughly. They must be cradled gently until the moment is right. So, if someone is heavy on your heart, but not in a way that drains you, not in a way that burdens you, but in a way that feels strangely whole, then consider this. Maybe God is not asking you to figure it out. Maybe He's just inviting you to feel it, to notice it, to allow space for something you can't yet name. And as time passes, you'll see it unfold, not all at once, but in small confirmations, subtle affirmations, until one day, what your spirit sensed all along becomes clear in your reality. The pieces fall into place. The meaning reveals itself, but you don't need to chase it. Just listen, just rest in the awareness that your soul already knows where it's going. And sometimes the mind simply needs to follow. We often imagine that the people who enter our lives are just random characters in some endless play, passing through, crossing paths, coming and going without any deeper design. But if you've lived long enough and if you've paid attention, you'll realize there are moments when someone doesn't just appear. They arrive, they don't simply show up. They shift something inside you. And that shift, that's not just coincidence. That's divine choreography. When God wants to move you into a new place, a new understanding, a deeper level of your journey, He often uses people to do it. Not because you need them to complete you, but because they carry something that unlocks something in you. A mirror, a lesson, a trigger, a healing. Whatever it is, they are a key and your life is a door. Sometimes the person on your heart is not the destination. They're the signpost pointing you toward it. You see, when someone stays in your thoughts, especially during pivotal moments in your life, it's often God's way of guiding your attention. Not to distract you, but to direct you. Maybe they represent something you've buried deep down. Maybe they stir up a longing you've been trying to ignore. Or maybe they awaken something dormant. Your purpose, your courage, your capacity to love freely again. They might not even be aware of the role they're playing. But God is. We think of divine instruction as coming in thunder and revelation, but more often than not, it arrives in whispers. A face you can't shake, a memory that keeps resurfacing, a person you've only met briefly, yet feel deeply connected to. And that's where discernment matters, because God doesn't just send people to your doorstep, He sends them into your consciousness, into your thought life. He plants them in the garden of your awareness, and He watches to see if you'll water the seed or walk away. Now, this doesn't mean that every person you think about is meant to stay. But it does mean that their presence, even in thought, has purpose. It could be to reveal something in yourself, something unhealed, something you're ready to confront. Or it could be to introduce you to an aspect of God you haven't known yet. A new depth of grace or patience or surrender. Because people are often the vessels through we experience the next layer of our transformation. Imagine for a moment that your life is a symphony. Every instrument, every note is part of the score. And certain people are not the whole song. They're just a sound, a rhythm, a harmony that signals a shift in the melody. Their appearance is timed. Their influence is intentional. They may not stay for the entire performance. But without their note, the music wouldn't move the same way. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this person represents. A divine note, struck at just the right moment to stir your soul into a different rhythm. So instead of asking, why am I thinking about them? Try asking, what are they unlocking in me? Because the truth is, God often sends people to reflect the parts of yourself you've forgotten or forsaken. He sends them to stretch your heart, to test your boundaries, to awaken your calling. Sometimes they're here to teach you how to love again. Other times, to show you where you haven't truly healed. And in some sacred cases, they're not just here to teach. They're here to stay. But you won't know unless you listen. Unless you sit with the thought long enough to hear what it's saying. Not just about the other person, but about you. About your season. About what God is shaping within you right now. Because divine connections don't come to entertain you. They come to transform you. And transformation always begins with attention. So if someone keeps showing up in your thoughts, don't dismiss it. Don't rush it. Just ask the question, stay open, and trust. Because sometimes the people God sends aren't the answer, they're the question that leads you there. There's a moment that comes when someone is on your heart so consistently that you begin to wonder if it's more than just you, more than memory, more than longing. It's something else, quieter but deeper. That's when you're invited not to analyze, not to obsess, but to pray. You see, we live in a world that rushes to react. The moment we feel something, we want to act on it. We want to send the message, make the call, find the answer, fix the feeling. But there are certain impressions that aren't meant for immediate action. They're meant for intercession. That means before you go toward them, you must go within. Because while your heart may be stirred by the presence of this person in your thoughts, it's only in prayer that you begin to understand why. God speaks to each of us in a language that transcends words. And sometimes, when He places someone on your heart, it's because there's a conversation He wants to have with you before you ever have one with them. Maybe He's preparing you for something. Maybe He's softening your spirit. Or maybe He's asking you to stand in the gap for them, to hold them up in prayer because they're going through something you can't see. And that's the beauty of prayer. It's not just communication, it's alignment. It brings your restless thoughts into divine order. It shifts your focus from trying to control the outcome to trusting the one who already knows the end from the beginning. When you pray, you begin to see the difference between what's from God and what's just your own desire dressed up in emotion. Because feelings can deceive you, but peace never will. And prayer is the space where peace begins to speak louder than confusion. It's where clarity starts to replace questions. Not always with immediate answers, but with a stillness that allows you to wait for them. That person who keeps showing up in your mind, they might be there for a reason. But prayer helps you discover whether the reason is to act or to simply listen. Sometimes God places someone on your heart, not so you can pursue them, but so you can protect them, spiritually, silently. There is power in unseen prayers. You may never know what your intercession is doing in someone else's life, but heaven knows. Maybe they're being kept safe because you obeyed that inner prompting to pray. Maybe your stillness is covering them in a storm they haven't told anyone about. Maybe your prayers are the very thing holding open a door they're too tired to knock on themselves. And sometimes, prayer is not about the other person at all. It's about you. It's about transforming your own heart, purifying your own motives, and quieting the parts of you that want answers more than they want God. Because before God gives you a person, He often gives you preparation. Before He brings the connection, He builds the character. And prayer is the workshop of that becoming. It's the place where your will bows to His, where your timing gives way to trust. So, if someone is constantly in your thoughts and you don't know what to do, pray. Not passively, not as a last resort, but intentionally, consistently, humbly. Because prayer is not a small gesture, it's a spiritual act of surrender. It says, God, I don't need to figure this out on my own. I just need to be aligned with whatever you're doing. And if in time that person is meant to be part of your story, prayer will lead you there. Not anxiety, not impulse, not pressure, just prayer. Honest, open. Because the truth is, when you take your thoughts to God, you stop letting them control you. And you start letting them guide you. And that's where everything begins to change. There's something remarkable about the human experience, something beyond space and time, beyond logic and language. And that is the way we can feel connected to someone without words, without proximity, even without explanation. You're thinking of them, and somehow, in some mysterious way, they're thinking of you too. You can sense it. You don't know why. You just do. That's not fantasy, that's resonance. You see, when God is weaving two people into the same thread of purpose, He often awakens them simultaneously. It may not be obvious, it may not be verbalized, but there's a stirring, quiet, subtle, but undeniably real, like two tuning forks vibrating at the same frequency from across a room. You think about them, and then they show up in a dream. You pray for them, and they message you out of nowhere. You try to forget, but then a song plays, a sign appears, and it all comes rushing back. Coincidence? Hardly. Because there are connections that God orchestrates, not for romance or drama or the fulfillment of a longing, but for alignment, for purpose, for timing. And often, when two souls are meant to journey together, even for a short stretch, God will awaken them at the same moment. Not always fully, not always consciously, but enough to feel the pull, enough to recognize the presence. What's fascinating is how we often downplay this. We tell ourselves we're imagining it. We convince ourselves it's one-sided. But when God is involved, it's never one-sided. It may be unspoken, it may be incomplete, but it is never without reason. Because spiritual alignment has its own rhythm, one that doesn't rely on conversation or confirmation. It just is. So if someone's been on your heart constantly, if they linger in your spirit like a name etched into your thoughts, there's a chance that on some level you're being stirred because they are too. You may be their midnight thought, just as they are yours. You may be praying for them while they're unknowingly being held up by your intercession. There's a connection taking place beyond the physical, and this too is how God speaks. But here's where it gets deeper. That resonance isn't always a sign to act. Sometimes it's a signal to prepare, because even when two people are spiritually aware of one another, God may still be working individually in both of them, refining, healing, strengthening. And if you rush into what isn't ready, you don't build a connection, you break it. So instead of chasing the feeling, let it grow. Instead of forcing the outcome, let it unfold. If it's truly from God, He will make it clear in due time. He's not the author of confusion. He's the architect of peace. So when that person crosses your mind again and again, don't just ask why, ask what. What is this drawing me toward? What am I being prepared for? What is God stirring in them and in me? Because sometimes you're not meant to meet just yet. Sometimes you're meant to grow toward each other like trees planted on opposite sides of a river, growing taller and stronger until one day your branches finally meet. And when they do, it won't be forced. It won't be awkward. It won't be riddled with doubt. It'll be peaceful, inevitable, natural. The beauty of divine timing is that it doesn't need your effort, only your surrender. And if that person is meant to walk with you, God will not let either of you forget. The thoughts will return. The signs will align. The peace will settle in. Because when two souls are truly meant to resonate, they won't just echo in each other's minds. They'll meet in God's perfect timing, and everything will make sense. So if you feel that quiet pull, that shared awareness, that unexplained connection, don't be afraid of it. Don't dismiss it. Just breathe, pray, wait. Because some connections aren't created by you, they're revealed to you. We have this tendency, don't we, to assume that if someone is on our mind constantly, we're meant to do something about it right now. That if the feeling is strong, it must be urgent. If the thought is recurring, it must be acted on immediately. But what if that's not how God works? What if the thought isn't a signal to pursue, but an invitation to prepare? We're not always good at waiting. We like quick answers, instant clarity, and fast resolutions. But divine timing doesn't bow to our impatience. And the truth is, not everything God shows you is meant for this moment. Sometimes He allows someone to enter your thoughts, not because it's time to move toward them, but because it's time to begin preparing yourself, not for them, but for what He is building within you through them. When God reveals a glimpse of what's ahead, He's not teasing you. He's training you. He's allowing you to feel the weight of a connection, the stirring of a possibility, so you'll begin to ask the right questions. You'll begin to look inward. You'll start becoming the kind of person who's ready when the time does come. Think about it like this. If you're walking through a garden and you spot a bud that hasn't bloomed yet, you don't tug on it to force it open. You don't rush it because it's not yet beautiful. You wait, you trust that in time it will open as it should. And the same is true for the people and the moments God places on your heart. When you try to force something that's meant to bloom in its own season, you don't accelerate it, you damage it. You interrupt the process, you step ahead of grace. So when that person keeps coming to mind, don't be so quick to assume the time is now. Don't let the pressure of urgency override the peace of preparation. Ask yourself instead, what is God developing in me right now? What character is He shaping? What healing is He doing? What vision is He unfolding? Because maybe the connection isn't delayed, it's just divine. And divine things require divine timing. That person might be walking through their own season of refinement too. They might be learning lessons that will shape how they show up when you meet again. They might be facing battles that God doesn't want you to fix. He wants you to pray through. Or maybe He's protecting both of you from meeting too soon, before you're both spiritually ready to carry what the connection is meant to become. See, preparation isn't a passive thing. It's not waiting around, twiddling your thumbs, hoping something magical just happens. No, preparation is active. It's rooted in trust. It's about becoming more attentive, more grounded, more whole. It's where God prepares your hands to receive something your heart has longed for, so you don't drop it when it finally arrives. And here's the paradox: the more you prepare, the less pressure you feel. Because when you're aligned with divine timing, you stop trying to make things happen and you start allowing them to happen. You begin to recognize that some doors don't need to be kicked open. They'll open all on their own at the right time, with a quiet click, not a loud crash. So if that person stays on your heart and yet nothing's moving, nothing's happening, don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean the connection is meaningless. It means it's maturing. It means God is still working, both in you and in them, behind the scenes where only He sees. And when He says now, it will be clear, it will be peaceful. It will feel like the most natural thing in the world because your soul will already be ready. Until then, don't chase, don't control, prepare, become. Let the silence do its work. Let the waiting refine your vision, because the deeper the preparation, the more powerful the arrival. And when it comes, you won't have to question it. You'll simply know.